Hey there everybody, welcome to your tech timeline for the week of August 18th, 2013. Now this of course is the show where I'm going to condense all the news in tech and gaming that you might have missed throughout the week and dice it up into awesome little bite-sized chunks for you. Sunday saw a huge story in the form of a team of scientists from the University of Pittsburgh that were able to build a freaking human heart. Now, the actual write-up on this with their abstract and everything has been around for a couple of months, and that's available through Nature Communications. And this story is a little less impressive when you consider that it is not an entire human heart. They say that building an entire human heart is as yet impossible for them, and will still be several months off. But this heart that is confined to petri dish, it has to live in a petri dish, is capable of beating autonomously. And that means completely outside of the body. When you stimulate this heart tissue, it's going to beat and react just like a real heart would inside of the human form. So basically, it can beat on its own. Now, we have done or experimented with this kind of thing in the past. We've created cells, heart tissue in particular, using the controversial embryonic stem cell method. This story is specifically special because it uses induced pluripotent stem cells, which are completely different. It has nothing of the embryonic connotations that the other stem cells do. This is actually created from an individual, from other cells on their body. And from my limited understanding, because the actual write-up in that journal is pretty complicated, so be sure to check it out for yourself if you're interested. But from my limited understanding, it is a much different process and really should be free from those kind of negative thoughts that people have. Now, of course, the words stem cell research are always going to carry with them that kind of negative connotation that we've been talking about. But hopefully, by having these kind of advancements in a slightly different field, we'll be able to get away from that a little bit. This is a huge achievement because they say that even though they can't build an entire human heart outside of the body yet, that in the very near future, they project that they will be able to create patches. And essentially what this is going to be is just healing tissue, much like a scab or a scar on regular human form. This tissue is going to be able to just be put into place over damaged tissue, on damaged tissue, and just kind of grow into it seamlessly and heal, congenital failure, a lot of problems that we've had, any sort of wound, really. This could be a great alternative to the sorts of medication that we are using now to try and heal those factors. It's just going to go right in, go right to work, and heal up, stitch up, essentially, that damaged tissue. So this is a really big story. I'm going to be watching this closely because hopefully using a different type of stem cell allows us to get away from the negative light that's been cast on stem cell research by and large, and lets us really get out into the open field of development and developing these sciences. Now, Monday saw a little bit of a change in track when Good Old Games announced its indie development portal. Now, this is cool because it is a completely curated submission service, which is far and away very different from Steam's offered Greenlight service. They also promise that they will be able to deliver a turnaround time of 2 business weeks or less. Now that's from submission to A-OK or rejection of 2 weeks or less, which I believe is a very tall order considering how many submissions they're going to get. There are a lot of indie developers out there right now, and I think that a 2-week business, if they can deliver on 2 business weeks or less, that's going to be very, very amazing. But they also have a host of other enticing features, including promotion and feedback. Now, that means that basically they're going to write up stories on the games that they're posting. They're going to have big write-ups on, like, front page is what they're promising. And every submission, whether or not it is accepted, is going to get feedback, which is also very great because if you're a developer and you're making a game, they will take a look at it, and whether or not it is accepted to their service, they're going to give you feedback, what you can make better, what you can do differently, and you can apply that to future games or try and resubmit. But the most amazing aspect of this service is that they say they're offering an optional advance on royalties between $5,000 and $50,000. That is huge for an indie developer. We've seen a lot of these types of games crop up on crowdfunding sites, because it's really hard for indie developers to find enough money to finish a game. They'll have concepts and they'll have properties and assets ready, but to actually tie up the loose ends and finish the game is sometimes very difficult. Such a sizable front on the money could really bolster the quality of those games. Now, of course, the amount is going to be completely up to Good Old Games, and they have said that there are a lot of factors that they're going to look at, most of which is what they believe the game is going to take in, to see if you're even eligible for the $5,000 to $50,000. But it's still something that no one else is really doing by and large. This is also very cool because it seems friendly to everyone. It's really friendly to devs. It's especially taking an interest into the end consumer's standpoint, because they say that we review all submissions and pick those that offer the qualities our users value most, such as gameplay depth, originality, and a high level of polish. So it's really, really cool to see this new kind of system, this new kind of indie development system cropping up. A lot of people are trying to get into the indie scene and cash in on it, which is great for them, obviously, from a cash cow standpoint, but really good from us because of the somewhat stagnant nature of AAA titles lately. So it's really cool to have another outlet for good indie titles. So this is something that you're really going to want to keep an eye on, and it really looks like Good Old Games, like I said, is trying to keep everyone, especially the end consumers' best interests at heart. Now, Tuesday, we all know, saw Sony's Gamescom, blah, 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 releasing stuff, PS Vita drop. But let's get to some real hard-hitting news. And when I say hard-hitting, I mean it. Mr. Mike Tyson has beaten Glass Joe. That's right, down goes Joe. And what I can only describe, I saw the video, and you should too, immediately after this one, finish this one. But then watch the video and watch what is probably one of the most joyous experiences you'll have this week. Mr. Mike Tyson, which I'll always use Mr. or some kind of honorific in front of his name because that man will tear my arms off, has apparently played the game before, but Fox Sports, who put this on, kind of touted it as his first ever experience with the game. But there is a quote floating around the internet where he said that he's never been able to beat Glass Joe before. He played the game once or twice, probably only once, I think. And he was unable to beat Glass Joe, never really picked it up again. He was a little busy punching people's faces back in the day. Now, this video is awesome because it's him actually conquering Glass Joe, beating that first opponent. And I personally would give $1 million to watch just a Let's Play of him doing this game. I actually tried to do one. I am lucky enough to own the original version, not the Mr. Dream bullshit. I own Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, and I'm pretty proud of that fact. It's a great game. But even so, this is just a crazy story. Mike Tyson punching Glass Joe. Definitely check out the video. Now, Wednesday, I wanted to report on the status of Last Guardian. I was really excited. I was like, oh, this is a story. Last Guardian, here we go. But apparently, the only news about Last Guardian is that it still exists, and it's not even a priority. Great. That's fantastic to hear. So, I started fishing around the internet, and I found a really interesting quote from Joel Nystrom, who is the CEO of Ludacity. Now, this is the team behind the upcoming Wii U release of It'll Do, which has been around for a little while, but it's officially releasing on the Wii U. Now, he was quoted in a recent interview as saying it's actually easier to publish on the Wii U than on Steam. This ties directly into our Monday story because it proves that people are looking for an alternative to the Greenlight service. Greenlight's become a little bloated, a little confusing to navigate. And Joel Nystrom went on to say that the thing about Greenlight is that you just don't know. There aren't any clear answers, and they seem to be changing their policy. And their CEO is saying one thing, and they're acting in another way. I think a lot of developers are anxious about Greenlight right now. That proves that there is a market for other indie development portals, which means that Good Old Games service is in the running and can compete. This is a market where it's not really full. It's a burgeoning market. It's growing. So this new service that they are coming out with is obviously going to be pretty strong and a contender in a market that is searching for alternatives. This story is also really cool because it talks about the Wii U in a positive light, which is something that a lot of people haven't been doing. Personally, I don't own a Wii U, but I appreciate it from a design standpoint. I think it's a cool thing, kind of a niche type of thing at this point, even more removed from mainstream gaming than the Wii. But it is still a really cool machine and has a lot of cool ideas on it. And one of the things that I think always would have made the Wii a much stronger console and much more applicable to mainstream gaming would have been a more open approach to indie development, which of course they did not have. The Wii was infamous for terrible treatment of indie developers. It's really cool to see Nintendo opening the doors and trying to embrace these floodgates, because at this point I think that a strong indie market is really going to be the best thing for the Wii U. It's also really cool to see these two services kind of rising up to fight Sony, which arguably has the greatest indie treatment of any of the major companies right now. So it's cool to see the competition going on between these three different services, and I'm really eager to see what happens and what's forthcoming. Now, Thursday was an interesting day because it showed that Pandora is pretty damn scared of the upcoming iTunes radio. Pandora Internet Radio is making its 40-hour mobile limit a thing of the past. Now, Pandora used to have an internet limit as well on its website, but they have done away with that because of the burgeoning different things. There are so many different services coming out in internet streaming radio. It's really becoming a very crowded space. So out of fear, in the past, they did away with that barrier to try and because they do have that subscription service. Now, it appears that they're doing away with the 40-hour barrier on mobile devices as well, which really is good for them because they don't have anything to lose. The increased ad revenue is going to make up for any damages done by people not subscribing to their service, and I think it's really going to make them a stronger power. But it's weird to see a company make so many reactionary moves. And I'm pretty sure, there isn't any official word on this, but I'm pretty sure that this is mostly due in part to Apple's new iRadio or iTunes radio service that they're going to be rolling out coming up. I think that Pandora is a little scared because historically Apple and Pandora have been best buddies. They were BFFs, except that last F has fallen off. You remember Pandora coming up on stage during numerous product releases and saying, Pandora Radio on your iPhone, this is going to be great. And that was a really big way for Pandora to open up the doors to more users, a great install user base. And even if iTunes Radio isn't the best thing out there, the fact that so many people, there's such a large market share of individuals that have iPhones and will buy iPhones, and a lot of those people, or some of those people, aren't the most tech savvy, means that iRadio service is going to have a huge install base right from the get-go. So that's direct competition with Pandora's base that they have developed on the iPhone. It's kind of sad to see them so afraid because I really do think that this is from a position of fear, but I think they're moving in the right direction. They've done a lot of positive things. Pandora I still use. I don't use any of the other services. I think Pandora is still one of the best. And I really enjoy the fact they've reached out to a lot of different labels and some unsigned bands, and they have a wider breadth of music than I think a lot of the other services has. So I think they're taking steps in the right direction, but I am a little worried for them. We all know what the big news was come Friday, when Steve Ballmer announced that he will be retiring within 12 months. But I don't want to get caught up in him actually retiring, his legacy, blah, blah, blah. I don't really care about any of that. What I want to talk about was when he was quoted that his biggest regret in all his career is Windows Vista. Now, I was working IT, and I was doing tech support back when Vista came out. And if any of you were, or any of you just bought it, then I don't think I have to extrapolate any further just how painful a transition that was for me. Maybe real sad. But now I've had a lot of problems with Windows 8. So what I want to do here is a kind of comment question for you. Which do you hate more? Vista or 8? Now, like I was saying, I don't think I have a really good grasp on the situation because I was working tech support at the time of Vista and have since gotten out of it at the time of 8. So I think the amount of venom I have for Vista might be mostly due to the fact that I had to deal with so many other people's issues. So from just an end user standpoint, which did you enjoy less? The train wreck that was Vista, or the ham-fisted punch in the nuts that is Windows 8? I'm interested to see what you guys have to say, because I'm not sure if my stance has been tainted by years of just dealing with the worst questions and absolutely no help from Windows whatsoever. Speaking of CEOs, though, I do want to take this opportunity to talk about another huge story from earlier in this week, and this is really cool. I'm really excited about this one because it shows that there is an internet service that's back on the rise. I want to talk about Marissa Mayer, who, of course, is the new CEO, the new head of Yahoo. Now, Yahoo sites generated more unique page views in the month of July than Google sites. That's not necessarily yahoo.com versus google.com. That's all Yahoo's properties. They have a lot of storied properties. They have Flickr, which a lot of people don't realize. And they just acquired Tumblr back in May, I believe they acquired Tumblr. Tumblr actually was not included in this study, so it's a completely separate thing, but it is still owned by Yahoo. This is a weird story because there are a couple different ways that you can look at this. Now, I'm aware that there is a sort of right place, right time scenario that can happen. You can just kind of land in a company at a point where seems to be at its lowest, but there could be a build-up or a framework for success that's already been put into place. So you can just kind of drop in, and then all of a sudden you come in and that framework kind of takes hold and starts going back up, and there's an uptake in views, page views, whatever it is this site or service is trying to do. Now, as a CEO or an acting member of the board, you're able to take credit for that and be, look what I've done, when it's not necessarily your accomplishment. But in this particular instance, I really do think that Marissa Mayer had a lot to do with it. You'll remember that she had a unpopular and controversial bout of policy changes when she came into power. She's also headed up a lot of acquisitions and okayed the purchase of Tumblr and everything like that. So I think, from my personal standpoint, of course I'm not super close to the issue. I don't know anyone who is in the environment, the Yahoo environment. But I think that this has a lot to do with her. And I think we need to recognize that and say that and talk about it. Because in the media, there was a lot of ire that was raised when she did things like she took away work from home abilities from Yahoo employees. That's one of the many things that she did, the policy changes. And a lot of people reported on that and were like, look what this lady's doing. Oh, female CEO. But I think we need to take a look at this huge statistic, which was only about 4 million views, which isn't a landslide. But the fact that a service that many of us thought was dying, Yahoo's just careening off a cliff, has now topped Google, which is a household name, it's become a noun, is big news. And I think more people need to be talking about it and looking into this, because it really does look, from my perspective, that Marissa Mayer deserves a little bit of a pat on the back, because it seems that she is riding the ship. Now, it may not be true, and we'll see in the coming months and coming years if Yahoo stays around or if she stays around as the head of Yahoo. But it is really cool to see that service burgeoning again and really coming back to the forefront of people's minds. Hopefully it continues. Competition's always a good thing. That is going to bring us to Saturday, our final news story. This is pretty cool, a little bittersweet though. It's that GM is building wireless charging into cars that it's going to be selling as early as next year. This is really, really neat. It's a great step forward in the technology, because one of the big problems with wireless charging is that it's not everywhere. It's bulky pads and weird cases on your phone. It's not every device. It's not cross-platform or anything like that. It's actually very, very specific, and it's difficult to really get set up. This is really neat because if it's just coming in products now, if it comes in desk drawers and tables and weird strange things like that, nightstands, start including this kind of technology, that's going to be a great step forward for it, because it's going to greatly increase usability. The only problem is that there are still several different modes of wireless charging, meaning that GM could put one mode into the dash of your car or the console of your car, and your phone might use a different one. This is really only going to be a step forward, or a big step forward, when there's a uniform structure that everyone kind of adheres to. But once we tack down a specific one, then these kind of advancements, the fact that they're in everything, will really make it a lot easier and a lot more useful to the end user. So anyway, you guys, that was this week. A lot of news to cover. I know it was a little long-winded, but I'm really excited about a lot of the things that we talked about. So hopefully you enjoyed the episode. If you did, be sure to share it wherever you can, tweet it out, do whatever you can to help the show. This show is brand new here at Technivolver. I'm really excited about it, and if you guys could help me get any more views in any way, I would really appreciate it. But even if you don't do any of that, I want to tell you that the links to all of the stories are going to be down in the description. So be sure to check out the stories that you found most interesting. And be sure to talk to me on Twitter or YouTube, message me, leave a comment telling me what stories you want to see in next week's Tech Timeline. But for right now, this is Josh Gallagher saying I'll see you in the future.